Your nutrition in the days leading up to when you're going to perform is going to be just as key as, if not more key.
I'd say if not more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that's the days where you're building up those glycogen stores, you're recovering the muscles. You can only do so much the day of.
Yeah.
It's
too late.
Yeah. We talk about that like with fighters on fight week. If you are trying to get your performance the week of and you're trying to push yourself the week of, it's too late.
Yeah.
Like that fight week should be about relaxing and recovering, especially the higher up you get. You have more media obligations. You have, more stuff to do on fight week. And then
travel
on top of that. So you're going to go and do all those things and then go and try and train hard. You're only going to decrease your performance going into the fight. And then you're risking forgetting about the proper foods and like going and, you're trying to cut weight. Maybe you look at McDonald's and you're like, maybe there's something I could find there. There's not.
Right.
There's not.
Yeah, you can't get better. You can only get worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. The fight week is like so unique because all the work is done. 100%. And you need to mentally tell yourself, all the work is done. All I can do now is fuck up, get injured, get tired, And it's hard because you've been training hard for 8 to 12 weeks to tell your body, guess what? Like, you're going to go into war and you got to relax.
Yeah.
So counterintuitive.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to know yourself and how you're going to best relax going into that fight week, because there's different guys who, maybe they need to go get that extra light workout in because it'll help calm their brain down because they have anxiety on fight week. But then...
You mean people have anxiety on fight week?
Oh, no, of course not. But then there's the guys who they're flat on fight week, just naturally. They're calm under pressure, where they might need to go sit around and get
antsy.
Get the antsiness and go and get pumped up for that fight. And I talk to all the fighters that I work with about that stuff. I'm like, look, man, I know you. Might want to chill out a little bit. Like, if it's 2 a.m. and you still haven't slept, feel free to shoot me a text, because I'm here for you and your performance. That's what I do. Reach out to me. If I could be of any use to you, I'm gonna be. So.
Yeah. Speaking of which, today's podcast, constantly evolving, presented by True Fitness. We're with our guest here, Eddie Rovak. Is that
Rovnak.
Rovnak.
Yep.
Where's that from?
I believe it's Slovak.
Yeah, it sounds pretty Slovak-y.
Yeah.
And we're here today to talk about nutrition. Eddie coaches many UFC fighters, getting them ready for their fights, helping them cut weight. And one of the biggest problems I see, especially in the gym, is people understanding nutrition. And I understand that because nutrition is different for everybody. For fighting, for cutting weight, for a normal person. So what we're going to do today is talk about some basic nutrition stuff and just give you some insights on how Eddie works with fighters to cut weight and how you can take principles from what he does and apply them to your normal life. So maybe you could give the audience a little bit of background on how you got into this and why it's so interesting to you.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback off of that first, it's not just fighters that don't have a grasp of their nutrition. It's every single human in America right now. Go into that a little bit more later, but my start in nutrition, I was going to school for athletic training first. I was going to Akron. Some family stuff happened. My mom was sick, so I moved back home to Youngstown. Went to Youngstown State. They didn't have athletic training. And to be honest, I had at least a base of athletic training. I don't have it nearly the level that you do. I don't even pretend like I do. But I was like, what can I do to kind of push myself And then I was like, you know what? I don't know a damn thing about nutrition. Let me go to school for nutrition. That's where I picked up everything.
Let me ask you something real quick. Sorry to interrupt
go
you.
for it.
I remember when I was in school for nutrition, I feel like everything I learned in school was bullshit. Like, of course, you know, macros, you learn that, you learned anatomy, you learned physiology, but what I was taught about nutrition doesn't work in the real world. Maybe you can, you know, go into that a little bit, but I just felt like when I was in school, it wasn't lining up with what I was seeing in the real world because I was already training people and I was seeing what I was learning in school wasn't really translating.
Some things do, some things don't. So to kind of put it politely to everyone in that nutrition, kind of like everyone that's in school, a lot of the principles that you're going to learn, they might not work for the everyday person because there's a lot of psychological and sociological principles that they don't teach you about. And there's also a lot of just nutrition principles that here's a good analogy for it. So you don't break the principles that they set forth, but you definitely bend them depending on the person.
And the situation.
Yes. Yep. They teach you a lot of the basics and they teach you a lot of the more advanced stuff that a lot of times you're not going to need to know for the average person either. So the average American right now, they need to just lose weight. What's the easiest concept that they may go too in depth about in nutrition school? Well, just put them in a deficit. It doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, they need to eat this food and this food and this food, and that's going to help them lose weight. They just need to be in a deficit, but they also don't need to be, here's where I bend it.
Here's the caveat.
They don't need to be too far in a deficit, because once you're too far in a deficit, say someone only eats once a day. Well, when they only eat once a day, their body's just going to start storing fat.
And losing muscle.
Yes.
If they're not
100%.
getting their maintenance calories.
100%. So you can go the complete opposite way, and they don't really tell you about that. But I see that a ton in America right now, especially guys that work construction. That's like the biggest thing. They only eat once a day because they don't have time when they're on the job. And then, you know,
their metabolism goes to shit.
Yes. A couple of years go by and they're 300 pounds and they're like, how did this happen? I'm working outside all day. I'm burning calories.
That's exactly how it happened.
Yes, exactly. You never properly fueled yourself. So your body goes into a panic and goes, if this guy's going to do this every day, we need to store fat for when he does.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about today is G-flux. So G-flux is just basically energy balance, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about a deficit, and I've seen this time and time again with athletes, and not high-level athletes, just normal people. I just call everybody who works out here athletes because they are athletes, you know? Yep. They come in here and they start working out. They add that to their lifestyle. They start eating better. They start eating cleaner. They go into a caloric deficit through nutrition, and they add on movement deficit too through exercise. And for about a month, they get results, and then their body adjusts. And then they're doing the same thing. They're not seeing results. They have to eat less. They have to eat less. And every time they're cutting calories, it's more and more unsustainable. Now their body has adjusted. Their metabolism has slowed. They're doing lots of cardio, and they're not eating enough. And what happens is they go into a state where they plateau. And then because their diet is unsustainable, because they've lowered their calories so much, they end up swinging back the other way, going back to a normal diet, but now they gain the weight back, plus more weight back because they've destroyed their metabolism. So what I've been really what I've been working with my clients on is getting them to eat the right amount of food to maintain their basal metabolic rate or their daily functions, and then get their deficits from exercise. So instead of cutting calories with food and exercise, we're eating the right amount. We're not including total daily energy expenditure. We're not eating that much, but we are eating like a BMR. And then we're getting our calorie deficit from walking and weight training and conditioning. And I'm seeing much better long-term sustainable results, continual results by eating more than eating less.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And even so, there's not much more that I could say about that because you pretty much covered it. What I can say is when I work with fighters, it's very similar. You drop the calories a little bit, but typically a lot of times, especially during camp, we're increasing protein because they're training harder. So they need the recovery from the protein. Depending on the person, maybe we're dropping the carbs a little bit more than the next person. Maybe we're
depends how much they got to lose.
Well, it depends on what their body responds to too.
So it's trial and error.
Yes, 100%. And anyone who tells you nutrition is an exact science is a liar.
Full of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's tons of times where I'm sitting there, I'm writing everything out, it looks good, I give it to the person, and then they follow it 100%. Nothing happens. So I got to go back in and go, okay, let me see here. Your body isn't responding to the carbs like this person does or that person does or I do. Like I could eat carbs all day. I'm not like the average person. So that maybe they have to have higher fats. And a lot of times when they have to have the higher fats, I'm seeing that they're hungry throughout the day. So they're not being satiated.
Right. Which makes it harder to cut weight because you always want to eat.
Yep.
So when you work with an athlete, say me and you, say I'm your athlete, and I'm like, Eddie, I'm 200 pounds. I want to get to 190, but I don't want to lose a bunch of muscle. I'm already at like 12% body fat. How do you assess that? And then what's the process look like to begin to develop a plan?
So preface this with everyone's different. So I would go, what have you done before? What has worked? And then I'd run you through my questionnaire. I have a questionnaire for every athlete. I save it so that I could look back on it. And I go, okay, well, you told me, let's just say for the sake of things, your body tends to respond to high protein, high fats, doesn't like carbs. I go, all right, let's see, do you know roughly how many calories you're burning? Most of the time they don't. I go, well, how much are you training per day? And then I'll look at their training schedule. I'll put it into, my weekly plan for them, my daily plan for them. And I'll go, all right, here you're training twice a day. We're going to add a little bit more calories this day because I know that you're going to burn through them and I know that you're going to need the recovery from the protein anyway. And this day, maybe it's a Sunday. Most people don't train as hard on Sundays.
For sure.
We're going to go a little bit easier on a Sunday to put your body into a state of burning. But if it's only a 10-pound,
what if it's not a cut? What if it's a sustainable weight loss? Like, okay, I'm fighting at 185. I want to fight at 170, and I want to stay there.
And you're walking at 200 right now.
Yeah, and if that's different, is that different than when you do it like a temporary cut?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because most people are not going to be cutting to a certain weight for an event. So maybe we could elaborate a little bit on a sustainable weight loss program. What's that look like?
So a sustainable weight loss program, you're putting them, you're taking their activity level and just dipping below that. A lot of people think that you're going to lose 5-6 pounds per week. That is the wrong way of losing weight. You want to lose 1 to 2. So it's a slight calorie deficit because then too, if you're getting properly fueled, you're going to work out harder.
Right.
So a lot of the time, You'll need the carbs, you'll need the fats, you'll need the protein, just a little bit less than what you're burning per day. And you just got to look at someone's training schedule, look at, how one of the things that everyone overlooks is how stressful is someone's life. If they got 4 kids, they got sick parents that they're dealing with, and they're still training, they're going to burn more calories than the average person. So you need to give them more calories. It doesn't matter. And obviously you look at someone's size too. Me and you, we're going to have more calories than some.
Based on our muscle mass?
Yes. Well, even if someone's 400 pounds, they're overweight, they're still going to burn a lot of calories because their body has to work harder to move.
Right.
So, a girl who's 4'11", 100 pounds is going to have to eat a significantly less amount of calories and a less amount of protein than someone like you or me would. So there's a lot of science that goes into it.
So it's a slight calorie deficit.
Yes.
Sustainable.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So now how do you figure out somebody's activity level? Like if you were to just look at, say me, I wake up in the morning, I come into the gym, I get in about an hour workout. It varies in intensity. I run 1 mile per day. I walk a lot. I walk over 10,000 steps a day. How are you going to calculate my activity level?
So there is a scientific equation that I have. You probably know of it, but it's the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. And then you can kind of get a gauge on the person. I know you. I know that you train hard. I know that your activity level or activity factor that I'm going to put into that equation is going to be a lot higher than someone who's just starting to work out.
So you tend to be more conservative with people because I feel like even for somebody like me, I'm in the gym for an hour, but I'm not moving for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
If I do a set of bench press, even if it's 15 reps, it's probably 25 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I like to superset. I'll go into some 1-arm rows. That's another 30 seconds. Then I'll walk around, get water. Half the time I'm working out. So it's like, sometimes I'll look at those activity trackers and they'll be like, oh, do you train 3 to 5 days hard? And I'll be like, I'm going to go a little conservative because if I go to where I think I'm at, I'm probably full of it. Do you use that with your athletes too? Not necessarily like high level fighters because you might have to over calculate them because they don't even know how much they're burning. When you're rolling, that's 5 minutes of movement. That's a different ball game than like a gym athlete. So maybe you could kind of talk about the disparity there.
Yeah, 100%. Even a lot of the fighters, I know that they don't train as hard as they think they are because, if they're at a gym where they're just dominating people in sparring, they're really not putting as much effort into their training as they think they are calorie-wise.
As a white belt.
Yep. And,
fighting for your life.
Yeah, I'm stuck under a guy who's 300 pounds of pure muscle. And if you're training with Gordon Ryan, you're gonna burn a lot of calories. It doesn't matter who you are,
Yeah.
And it's the same for the average everyday person. You got to kind of underestimate what they say they are because you could always bump it up too.
Right.
But at first you want to underestimate, see what they're actually burning, and then kind of go from there.
Do you have people, because what I like to do, I don't like to just throw darts. If somebody really wants to get their nutrition down pat, I'll have them just record everything they eat for about 3 to 5 days. So I don't change anything. Mm-hmm. I want to see where you're really at because, if somebody's trying to lose weight and say they are eating 1,200 calories a day and they should be eating 2,000 and you bump them up to 2,000, they're probably going to gain weight right away and they're going to freak out. Mm-hmm. So do you have them ever kind of log their stuff beforehand so you can kind of get an idea where they're at?
Yeah, 100%. I won't even work with someone until they give me a 3-day recall of what they've eaten. And I make sure that it's 2 days during the week and 1 day on the weekends because everyone completely changes their diet on the weekends.
Yep.
If we're going to watch fights, typically if we go out to, a restaurant to watch fights, I'm not eating as healthy.
Hell no.
I'm splurging.
Right.
It is what it is. most of the time I'm going to burn the calories anyway. I
Right.
know that if I'm eating like crap, I'm going to go hard the next day to really punish myself for doing that. But it goes back to every person is different. So you got to kind of get a feel for what their daily intake is, what they are when they're at their worst, and what they are when they're at their best. Plus, that gives you an idea of what foods they like, so you can go, hey, this person really likes these things. They're healthy. I know that they can eat it consistently day after day because that's what they've been doing for 10 years anyway.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because True Fitness AI, the app that is actually sponsoring this show, builds your meal plans based around foods you like. Because how many times have you got a meal plan that's full of foods you don't like and then you can't stick to it? But a good coach like you will look at what people eat and build the meal plan around that. And that's probably why you're so successful, because that's what it takes. You need to meet people where they are. People aren't going to eat a bunch of foods that they don't like just to lose weight. Now, if you can give them foods that they like in the right amounts, that's when the magic happens. At least I feel.
Absolutely. 100%. And, I work with people from all different ethnicities and backgrounds too. So you got to have a feel for the different cultures and the different foods that, a person responds to based on their cultural ethnicity too. So that's a big part in it. And there's so many little things that go into it that everyone kind of overlooks, man. It's so in depth.
I like what you talked about before when you said the weekend, right? Because what most of us don't realize is that, say you're in a 500 calorie deficit Monday through Friday, you're at 2,500 calories, right? You still got another 1,000 calories to actually lose that pound. Now, if you on the weekend, if you normally eat 2,000 and you've been eating 1,500 all week, so you're in that deficit, now you go to 2,500 2 days in a row. Now you're at another surplus of 1,000 and your deficit has went from 2,500 to 1,500. And you're like, why am I not losing weight? And it's really easy to overeat on the weekends. How do you help your clients find that sweet spot of eating to where they're enjoying their lives, but they're still in their deficit?
It depends on the client. A lot of times I'll set a number for them and I'll go, hey, what are you, well, depends. Sometimes I'll go, hey, what are you feeling this week? Like for a cheat meal. And I'll go, all right, this is how much you can have of it.
Nice.
Or if they're really, really good, they're really high level on tracking it on their own. There's certain clients that I have that, I could go, hey, this is what I want you to stay under and this is what I want your protein at. And they'll go, okay, and they'll just do it. But a lot of times I'll go, hey, you can only have 2 pieces of that pizza. I'm cutting you off at that point. And if I'm being stern with them. If you go over that, we got a problem. And I'm going to ask your wife whether you only had 2 pieces of pizza.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times their significant other will play a role in keeping them in check.
For sure.
So.
I feel like that's super important, the support system. Mm-hmm. If you are the only person in the house who's trying to lose weight, you're not going to lose weight. Because people are going to sabotage you.
Yep.
Your wife is going to... I remember when I was cutting weight for a fight, one time my wife made cookies. And it was like a week out, and I was like, why are you making these fire-ass cookies when I have to have a fight in a week, And she doesn't know any better, but you need support.
Yep.
Like, everybody's got to be on board. And you make me think about a couple things. I want to retract a little bit. You said something where you said you keep people in a deficit and you hit a certain amount of protein. Are those 2 of the biggest factors when it comes to maintaining muscle and losing weight, being in a deficit, but eating enough protein? Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that they are the 2 biggest factors, because if you are losing weight, but it's not good weight, time's going to go by and you're going to go, yeah, I lost the weight, but I still look like crap.
Right.
Whereas if you're building the muscle, now there's a misconception out there that you're going to get too muscular. it's just not the case. You'll get as muscular as you want to get, and then you'll stop and you'll go, I like being here, or I want to add more muscle.
And I'll maintain this.
Yes, 100%. And if you could put someone in a caloric deficit while maintaining the protein that they need, and a lot of times they'll overestimate what they actually need. I think protein right now is probably one of the most overconsumed things in the American diet, because you look at like everyone,
bodybuilders and stuff.
Well, yes, and you look at like a steakhouse. A steakhouse serves a 16-ounce steak. Everyone loves to eat that 16-ounce steak, but who really needs that 16-ounce steak? Your body can only digest, roughly 40 grams of protein at its max. People can train it to be over that in a sitting, but a 16-ounce steak is going to have a lot more than 40 grams of protein.
It's going to have a lot of fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of fat, a lot of protein. You just don't need that in a sitting, and that's where a lot of Americans are going wrong too. That, and the fact that they take the easy route. It's not to go down a rabbit hole, but everyone hates cooking their own meals. You got to know what you're putting in your body. So that's another place where I start with clients is, hey, what cooking utensils do you have at home? Like, I go so in depth with it because I want to know their support system. I want to know what they have to cook with, how long they've done it for, and, do they like grilling? Do they like baking?
Okay,
like
what
that.
if you have somebody that doesn't cook, and you need to like kind of lead them? What do you tell them to buy? How do you make it easy for somebody who's not like into cooking, and they will cook, but say they're just not very cook experienced?
It depends on the person. If they're like, hey, I really want to get into cooking, I'll go, okay, well, here's a couple of good videos. I'll send them over videos on like, here's how you properly cook a steak. Or I'll tell them, hey, this is, a good meal prep option that you could throw in the oven just to kind of get them in the kitchen and heating up that food.
So simpler stuff.
Yes. Yep. You got to, it's building blocks.
Right.
There's levels to it. And then, you put in the cooking the steak on the grill at the top, so it's just, you build them up to a point where they're sufficient on their own, and they don't really have to go and get the, little meal from Publix.
Right.
So,
because you don't know what's going in that, no
yes.
matter what it says on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. And most processed foods are not going to give you the same output as whole foods. Most processed foods are going to have seed oils in them, which is going to cause inflammation.
Yep. Omega-3s versus omega-6s.
Right. And maybe you could talk a little bit about whole foods versus processed foods.
Yes. I could go on a long rant about that, but essentially when you put the processed foods into your body, is the average person versus the athlete is going to have the same result. But the processed foods aren't going to do you any good. Whereas when you're in the kitchen, you're cooking your own stuff, you know exactly what's going into it. You're eating the high quality fats, the complex carbohydrates, the lean proteins. You know exactly what's going into your food. It's going to have a massive decrease in inflammatory properties. Like if you're having seed oils, good luck, especially like I'm in my 30s now. I know as soon as I eat something bad, I'm going to feel like crap the next day. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to sweat, and it's going to be thick. Like if I'm not hydrated, hydration's a big thing. There's so many benefits to eating the healthy foods that you know exactly what you're getting, the whole foods, whereas the cons of eating stuff where you don't really truly know what it's coming from they're endless.
Right. Yeah. And I'd say probably the first thing you would tell a client is cut out processed foods.
Yeah, for the most part. There's, everyone does have their vices. I don't know what yours is, but mine's ice cream. So instead of eating ice cream every night, I switched to frozen yogurt because I know that it's a little bit healthier than the ice cream. I know that it's going to be a little bit less calories, and I know that I could eat it and I don't necessarily feel like crap because I know where I'm getting my frozen yogurt too. Right. I know it's a high quality place.
Yeah, it's organic. It's coming from cows that aren't treated with steroids and antibiotics, which is, I try to tell people before you start getting into the minutia of counting everything, let's just cut out all the bullshit. Let's go whole food completely. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a pizza on Friday night. That's fine. But 90-10, because that 10% is going to keep you sane.
Yep.
And when people start to do that.
That's a good line. I use that all the time. You have to keep yourself sane. If you don't, if you're just eating healthy every single day, obviously, it becomes second nature to it. But then when you do mess up and you have that one day, if you've done it for months and that one day where you have a cookie, it's off a cliff. It's not downhill. It's off a cliff. You don't stop eating cookies and sweets and everything.
Swing back the other way.
You just completely rebound to where you were before. So it's actually really, really important that you have that one day a week or you have that one meal a night. In my case, it's one meal a night because I know that if I eat too healthy, I'll go on a bender eating brownies. That's just how it is.
So you were saying something about hydration. That's not talked about a lot.
Yeah. I think it is the single most important thing that everyone overlooks because if you are 2% under or over hydrated, that's under or over, it's leading to a 10% decrease in athletic capabilities. They've done tons of studies on it. I usually don't shout too many people out, but Andy Galpin from Cal State Fullerton is one of the leading researchers in hydration, and I learned that from him. He's an absolute genius. It is the single most important thing, and a lot of people, they think just drink water. It's not the case because if you don't have the sodium and the potassium and the rest of the electrolytes and everything else that goes into hydration, you really don't know whether you're at the hydration levels. And they do make sweat tests for that type of thing. Most people aren't going to go out there and buy a sweat test anyway, but I do recommend it. But yeah, it's massive.
So dehydration will affect performance. Does it affect anything else? Does it affect, say, sleep, or does it affect something as unique as sex drive?
Yes.
Because if you don't have proper blood flow, man or woman, you're not going to feel as strong when it comes to performance in all areas of life. So I feel like people are really good at drinking coffee, right? Myself included. A lot of people are really good at drinking Coca-Cola. But as you said, water, maybe you can give us some tips on how, I know you walk around with a gallon, so that's an easy one. But do you add salt? Do you put in any kind of electrolyte blends like Element or Noon or anything like that? How do you stay hydrated?
Yeah, so there's a couple of really good products out there on the market. Element is a good one. Noon is a good one. Liquid IV. For just a basic, hey, this is what the average person has. Liquid IV is probably the best blend out of those three, but Element is a really good one, especially if you carry a lot of water around. They all have their different benefits, so you got to see which one works best for you. And that's where the sweat test comes into play because you could see exactly how much of the electrolytes that you're losing. But I carry around my water with just Propel because I can kind of gauge.
And Propel is like a Gatorade kind of thing?
It's, well, the nice thing about Propel is it's 0 calories.
Okay.
Which you're not getting proper hydration if it's 0 calories because you actually need a little bit of sugar. Now, I get my sugar through foods, so it kind of balances itself out to where I've done sweat tests, so I know exactly where I'm at this point. If you know that you need to drink a little bit more salt because you're not sweating during training, drink a little bit more salt.
What if you're sweating a lot during training? You're like one of those people that's like sweating way too much.
Yeah, that's like me. I sweat sitting there. I'm sweating right now. I significantly decrease my sodium because I don't. A lot of people, from what I've seen, this is just anecdotal. It's not. There's no scientific principles behind this one. If you are a low salt sweater, typically you sweat a lot. So I'm a low salt sweater. I've done the sweat tests. I sweat.
What is a low salt sweater? I've never heard of that before.
So if a low salt sweater is someone who loses fewer electrolytes in their sweat.
Okay.
So typically my salt content is really low. My water content's really high. That's from what I've seen, I sweat a lot.
So when you do a sweat test, it'll tell you how much electrolytes you're losing?
Yep.
How do you do it?
So Gatorade actually makes one. Their website hasn't been working, so don't
go out and use it right now.
Make sure that it works
right
before you go and you try to buy one. But it's literally just a patch that goes on your skin, and I think it's a great resource, especially for anyone who's trying to increase their performance, whether it's in the cage, in your gym. I think it's a great resource. Yeah.
Performance matters. So we've covered a lot of principles when it comes to sustainable weight loss. Maybe you can kind of run down a list of things, foundational stuff that people need to be doing, in this way they're not overwhelmed with all the little things. Getting these things right will get you 90% of the way there, Maybe you can kind of go into a little bit of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's a good kind of, it's not really a question, but it's a good
teaching point.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Don't worry, we edit this stuff, so it's all good.
So a couple key principles to getting in better shape, just getting in better health. One, you got to exercise. Everyone has to exercise. I feel like a lot of people, as soon as they get done with high school, playing high school sports, being active in their school days, that's when they tend to stop. Don't stop.
Yeah, they put it on the back burner.
Yeah, go find something you enjoy doing, whether, it's playing recreational baseball with your friends or in some league or coming into a CrossFit gym and exercising. Another one is to learn the basics of cooking. You don't have to be a high-level chef. You don't have to go out there and be Gordon Ramsay, but you have to have a simple knowledge of how to use a stove, how to bake, because as you get into staying in shape, you're going to want to eat your foods that you're cooking. Plus, it's satisfying. When you make something good that tastes really good, you love it, man.
It saves you money, too.
100%. And another thing that I was going to mention is to get into learning where you could go get good groceries at high quality ones for a decent budget too. Yeah. Because not everyone out there is going to have a high budget to go to the butcher shop, get
Whole Foods.
Yeah, to get these high quality cuts of steak, but you can do it to where you could go to the local fruit stand. They have good fruit that's healthy for you there, and it's going to last longer than, some chain grocery store that their produce, as soon as you get it, it's already going bad the next day.
Yeah, because you don't know how long they've had it off the tree or the vine or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing is, as we age, a couple things that people forget about. One is their dental health. No one mentions this, but you see a lot of especially elderly people, and you're starting to see it younger and younger, when you don't take care of your teeth, you tend not to even want to eat. So if you have a toothache, when's the last time you had a toothache? Did you want to eat then?
Can't.
No, you literally, like, it's so painful that you can't. And you see the toothaches younger, and then as you get older, a lot of people, they'll end up getting dentures, and they have ill-fitting dentures. So that's just something that...
Or even like shit, anecdotally, I had 2 teeth that I had to have removed due to bone loss. Now I need an implant and a crown, which are $5,000 each.
Yes.
So for 2 teeth, that's $10,000.
Yep.
And that's a lot of money. So when you lose teeth, you lose the ability to chew food.
Yes.
So taking care of your teeth is vital to longevity because you can eat solid, whole foods. Mm-hmm. You don't have to drink Ensure, drink protein shakes, and that stuff. So that's a really good one that I never really talk about or think about. And I'm glad you brought that up.
And then the last one is just your overall health, making sure that you're getting the checkups, making sure that your vision's good, because a lot of people, they won't even leave the house because they're scared to drive because they can't see at night.
Right.
So they're not going and doing their grocery shop, and they're just having stuff delivered to their house because, and it's the little
less
things.
Mobility.
Yes, it's the little things like that we tend to forget about.
Yeah. And how do you feel about protein? Like how much should people aim for? What's a general number?
So it's typically 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. And
we're in America, bro.
It's very, very.
I don't know what the hell a kilogram is.
I don't. Sometimes
Just
I
kidding,
don't even.
my European people.
So to get to kilograms, it's pounds divided by 2.2.
Right. So say I'm 200 pounds. How much protein should I be eating a day as an athlete, somebody who works out?
Probably on that upper end of 1.5. So if your kilograms is like,
say 150 grams.
Yeah, I would say you're in between 80 and 100 kilograms, just in simple math in my head. Yeah. So you'd be right around 150 grams of protein.
Good. So basically, you're thinking if you're somebody who works out, 75 grams per 100 pounds. So for me, I'm 200 pounds, 150 grams. For somebody who's 150 pounds, that would be about 105 grams, 110 grams, something like that.
So, close to in that range, yeah.
You don't feel like the old 1 gram per pound of body weight you feel like that's too much?
I do feel like that's too much. And especially for someone like you who works out. Do you know how hard it's going to be for you to eat 200 grams of protein in a day?
I do know.
Yeah. You're going to be drinking shakes left and right.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way.
Right.
I mean, and you're going to be constantly overeating on your protein in a sitting. It's just not feasible. So.
Yeah. All right. Now, water, how many ounces?
That's a good question because everyone lives in different climates and whatnot.
And Miami is a different world right now.
Yeah. I can't have under a gallon per day because...
How many ounces are in a gallon?
128, I believe.
Okay.
Which is roughly 14 to 16 cups, something like that, of water.
It's easier to carry a gallon around.
I have a conversion sheet at home. I'm not a math guy by any means. I have every equation, every conversion sheet.
You're a math
it's all
guy
listed right by my
with your sheet available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Plate tectonics, I get it.
Yeah.
So it really depends on how much you're training. A great way to monitor whether you're drinking enough water is to look at your pee. If it's yellow, you're probably not hydrated. If it's clear, you're probably hydrated.
That's an easy one.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Oh, something I would like to add to your list of principles that I feel is super important for everybody is to buy a book and learn about nutrition.
Yeah.
We are all eating, why do we need somebody else to explain nutrition to us if that's something we do every day? We need to be responsible. We need to understand what macros are, what micros are, so that, one, we can take care of ourselves, but especially if you're a parent. You know, I see so many parents talk about their kids being overweight. You're the one feeding them. You need to learn about nutrition. So is there any, you said Andy Galpin?
Galpin.
Galpin.
Yep.
I've seen him online. He's a beast. Would you say that was a good guy to follow? Or who are some guys that you would recommend people listening to this podcast maybe start digging into a little bit to kind of learn a little bit more about nutrition?
Yeah. So we're throwing out the basics on our social media at Immortal Diet Optimization. And then Andy Galpin, if you want to get into the more advanced stuff.
Do you have a website then?
Yes.
Immortal Diet Optimization?
ImmortalDietOptimization.com. It's Immortal Diet Optimization on all social media, Instagram, Facebook.
Oh, nice. I didn't even know.
Yeah. So we'll be putting out more and more content and a lot of just the basic stuff. And every time that I post something, I try to include citations so that you know that I got it from a credible source too.
True.
You know that that study that I'm quoting is a study you can go and look up on your own if you really want to.
Nobody wants to.
No one wants to, but it's there for you.
Yeah.
It's there for
Go
you.
read the abstract.
Yeah.
You know? You're like scrolling down. Where's the good part?
Yep.
We took these people, we put them through this. I don't care. Let me get to the conclusion. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which essentially I'm posting the conclusion and then you could go if you want to look at
double
more,
check me.
Yeah. If you want to say, bullshit.
Right.
Well,
because there's a lot of
study's
bullshit
there.
in the nutrition world.
100%. And there's a lot of uncredible people who, especially bro science.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. Me and you have been in gyms our whole life. How many people, especially in the MMA world and jiu-jitsu world, have gone, oh, this is exactly what you need to do for nutrition. And then you're like, dude's lost his mind.
Yeah.
That is the complete opposite.
Well, shit, I used to be that guy. When I first started personal training, I told all my clients the same thing. Move more, eat less. And yeah, it would work for a month. And then they would plateau and I'd be like, eat less.
Yeah.
Move more.
Yep.
Eat less. And eventually they broke. They couldn't sustain it. And I had to re-educate myself on why are people not able to just eat less and keep eating less, because your metabolism gets disrupted. And that's what really, opened my eyes to the fact that food is the energy that you need for a good workout. So if you want to have a good workout and you want to maintain muscle mass, you got to eat enough food. Mm-hmm. And you got to get that G-flux up. Yep. And I don't think that there's enough, nutritional guidance out there really explaining that process to people. Because if you look on Twitter or if you look on YouTube, it's all the same shit. Calorie deficit. But there's multiple ways to get to a deficit. And if you're getting to the deficit purely from lowering your calories, you're going to hit that wall. You can only go so low. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen? You're going to keep going down to zero? You're going to be one of those people that, there is a guy who fasted for like a year, but he was like 350 pounds.
Yeah.
And he lost 180 pounds fasting.
But I guarantee he lost so much muscle in that process.
For sure.
That he could have just retained if he had a balanced diet.
Right. Yeah. So basically you want to, and this is another thing, let's stop talking about losing weight and let's start talking about losing fat.
Yes.
Everybody's like weight loss. But weight loss and fat loss are two different things.
Yep.
And everybody's so focused on weight loss, they come in here, they're like, I want to lose weight. I'm like, nah, you want to lose fat. Let's get on the InBody. Okay, you weigh 200 pounds. Okay, you don't need to lose weight. You're 50% body fat. You have 100 pounds of body fat. So if we lose 50% of that fat, you're going to lose 50 pounds.
Yep.
So I feel like there needs to kind of be like a shift in the way we talk, because then people are really going to start to understand, okay, fat loss. Well, what burns fat? Oh, muscle. oh, so I need to build muscle? So if we just start talking about muscle building, eating to sustain and maintain muscle while creating a deficit through movement to lose fat, now you're going to see a sustainable approach that's going to allow you to actually enjoy the foods you're eating, because you need to eat a lot. If you eat whole foods and you're trying to get 2,500 calories of whole foods, you're eating all day. Like, you can't eat enough vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and complex carbs. That's a lot of work, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And if you want a nice looking jawline, eat whole foods and, eat the right amount of calories.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things, thermogenic energy expenditure. The more muscle you have, the more fat you're going to burn. So as you're building muscle, I sat in a car for 4.5 hours today, just getting down here. And I guarantee you that a lot of the people who, they're in here every day. I've been doing this. I've been training, working out for, 15 years at this point. I'm going to burn a lot more calories than the average person. I'm at almost 3,000 calories burned per day.
How do you track that?
I have a Whoop strap.
So the Whoop is accurate in your opinion?
It's probably the most accurate one out there.
My Aura Ring has something to say about your Whoop strap.
That one's good too. That's probably a close second. The only reason why I like this over that is because that's a little bit further away from your heart, so it's going to be a little bit less accurate.
Touché.
But that one, you don't even notice it. It's a lot more beneficial.
To keep on like through sleep and all that shit.
Yep.
Because I had that before.
Yep.
And it would bother me at night because I already have like very hairy arms and shit. You do too?
Every time I have to charge it and I go and clasp it back, it rips the hair out of my arms. But
and on top of that, the strap starts to stink when you train a lot. You got to have multiple straps and shit, I
have specific soaps that I've washed mine
got it
with.
down to a science.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good about... I thought that I was going to burn a bunch of calories training jiu-jitsu yesterday, and it said that I only burned like 300. And I was like, oh, that's right. I had a really good day yesterday of like...
Yeah, you were flowing?
Yeah.
You weren't putting out a lot of output. You were just like moving.
I felt good yesterday. My mind was like perfectly into it. But then, there's days where I'm like, man, I'm going to go light today. I don't think I'm going to even burn any. And then I get stuck under someone for 3 rounds. And I'm like, wow, I burned 700 calories because I was exhausting myself.
So for someone like you who burns 3,000 calories, what kind of deficit do you put yourself in when you want to get leaner?
Well, typically, because I grew up really, really skinny. So my entire life...
You're a hard gainer?
Yes. My entire life has been building, except for when I was fighting. So when I was fighting, all I had to do was take out... It's literally this small of a change from what I was doing. And for the majority of people, it's going to be this small of a change just to lose some weight too. I just took out the ice cream. That's it. During camp, I went from 180 to 160, and then the rest was a water cut every single time. It was so easy of just, I'm not eating sweets. That was it.
That was it. What if you have a client that's like, I got to have a sweet? What's a sweet that you tell them to eat?
It depends on what they gravitate towards.
Chocolate.
Chocolate. There's some healthier chocolate chip cookies out there that actually don't taste too bad, or even a chocolate bar, like a true chocolate bar, like
dark chocolate.
Yeah. A lot of people don't like dark chocolate. I can't stand dark chocolate.
Really?
It's so good for you, but as compared to like milk chocolate.
Right.
But I will tell them, like, if they can't tolerate the dark chocolate, I'll go, all right, just have a little bit of milk chocolate.
Yeah, like a bite.
Yes. You don't need to go crazy with it.
No.
Plus, if you buy a bar of chocolate, typically you don't go crazy with it. What gets us is when we have the bag of Reese's. I don't know what you like. I if you put Reese's in front of me, they're gone.
They're gone.
I don't put them in my house.
Right.
So when someone's going to the grocery store, I say, don't you dare get those Reese's.
Bro, you just brought up a great point that I want to cover right before we finish. Food in the house. For me, I just keep food in the house that I know I can eat ad nauseum. That I can get up and eat it whenever I want. So we're talking grapefruits, we're talking apples, blueberries, turkey, chicken, whole grain bread, and of course stuff you got to cook. But I feel like in order for anybody to be successful, you have to keep the right foods in your house. Mm-hmm. You cannot have bad food in your house because you're going to eat bad food. Do you ever go to anybody's house and like clean out like pantries and stuff?
It's kind of, so I have clients all over the country, so I'm not physically going into their house, but it puts a kind of like when I do the questionnaire and I get that full evaluation of like, hey, this is, they have a bunch of kids. Those kids aren't going to want to eat healthy foods 24/7.
Fuck those kids.
Fuck those kids.
Yeah. You're going to eat what I tell you, motherfucker. Yeah.
You're going to eat and you're not getting up until you're done.
That's right.
Which is
how we did it. Yeah, exactly. We turned out all right.
Yeah. You can't always be like that. Your kids are going to want to have snacks. So it's kind of this fine line of, okay, get the snacks that they like, but that you don't like.
Right.
So that you're not going to go and eat them.
Right.
Let the kids have them because they're running around like animals
all
anyway.
Day. Right.
They're burning everything that you put into their system.
Yeah.
Depending on the kid.
Right.
You can go, all right, well, I don't like that snack, so I'm just not going near it. Everything is going to be different for the person. Another one is, maybe their spouse likes having this certain snack at night. Well, let's find the healthier option.
Right. Well, what are some healthy options? What are some good snacks?
One of the big things, especially if someone's a big sweet eater, is you transition them to fruits because you do still get that sweetness, especially if it's late at night. You could make a really good like a dip for fruits, just using some yogurt, like Greek yogurt with
now we're talking
some coconut and
some protein,
a little bit of lime zest in there that you could dip some fruit in.
Wow.
That it's going to be a healthier option for you to snack at night than
bowl of cereal.
Yeah. Yep. Or you could go and get a healthier cereal with a little bit of a low-fat milk instead of drinking the whole milk, because especially as we age, a lot of people are going to become lactose intolerant because that's just kind of our enzymes aren't as good as we age. That's just a natural thing. Just simple tweaks like that to where, instead of...
giving yourself an opportunity to succeed.
Yes. Yep. And instead of the ribeye, you're having...
It's a sirloin.
A sirloin, a leaner cut of meat. You're going and doing a roast. That way you could start mixing in some vegetables too.
Nice.
There's so many different tweaks like that you can make to your diet that'll just make a long-lasting, impactful change.
All right, guys. So this is the take-home. Protein at every meal. Is that a good one?
Absolutely. Don't overeat on it, though.
Don't overeat on the protein. Hydrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that's number one. Because
number one. Okay.
If you stay hydrated, if you're always drinking water, you're not always going to be eating.
Nice. So it's going to help you cut that down.
Yep.
Eat enough to maintain muscle, but not so much that you're not in a deficit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So don't starve yourself either.
Yeah. Don't go the opposite end of the spectrum to where you just don't eat.
Yeah. And if you need help, go to immortaldietoptimization.com.
Yes. Fill out the questionnaire. Do my best to see what we could do for you and see if we'd be a good fit.
All right, cool, guys. Thank you so much, Eddie, for being on today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.